Hi. In this lecture, we will talk about strategies to distribute our Java programs. We will be talking about fat jars versus light jars. Then we will work with no jars, but with class files, and how we can make our development more productive without having to package our classes. We will see as well how we can manage web assets effectively in the Java environment. And in the end, we will look at how to create custom Java runtime and be able to generate executables. This is a new feature that comes with the Java 9, and it's a very interesting feature, but just few people know about that, and you'll be exploring this in this course. So stay with me. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of fun. Let's start talking about fat jars versus light jars. So I'm going to show you here that we have two different jars in my project inside the target. These two jars was generated by Spring Boot Maven plugin, which will be generated one light jar. That will be this one that will contain only our classes from our project. And they will also generate another one with via the fat jar, which will contain everything that our project uses for in order to use, right? So there will be our classes and also all dependencies that our project requires to run. So as you can see here on the folder, we can see that the light one will be 6k kilobytes, and the fat one is going to be almost 20 megabytes because it would contain all the dependencies that Spring requires, and it's quite a lot. And so you can see that the original and the light is the same size. It's because I just duplicated this one and rename it with light just to make it simpler. But when Spring generated, it generated with this original in the end. So how you can see what is inside our jars? So we have you can use a Java command to extract. First, to list everything that is inside it. So it lists everything that is inside. So you have some metadata info, you have some pub folder, and you have our class that will be inside this this path here. And also we added a test CSS that you're going to speak later, some of our application configuration, and so on and so forth. And we also can extract whatever is inside this this package. So basically, jar it's almost the same as zip or a tarball. So it's a way to compact files and package in such a way. So you could be using zip as well, but then Java use jar. Let's see how we can extract what we saw above in a more easier way. So you can see that now we have everything that you saw before. Now it's here available for us, and you can kind of look at the folder itself. Let's say extracted jar, and here everything. So you can see the config property, some test CSS. So I think everyone know that in the jar it has a dot class and everything for Java, but you can actually add anything you want. So you can see that you have properties, you have CSS, and you could add anything in the jar. Okay. So until now we saw what the basically difference, how to generate those two options. Next step, we are gonna run the light version and see what is needed in order to run this version. Let's try to run this jar that only contains our classes with no dependencies. We can try to run that. So you can see here pointing to the light one. And so you can see that it is complaining because we don't have the rest of our libraries available in this jar, and we are not passing where to find those. So the first one that didn't find was the Spring Boot one. So to fix that, we need to add the dependency path to our class path. Class path is the place where the Java runtime execution will look when it's not able to find the class in the jar itself that we are providing, and also not able to find on the Java internal class as well. So I'm saying class path because most of the projects don't use the new Java modules, and therefore you will work with the class path. However, in our project, we are using Java modules, and because that we need to set the path to modules, and it's done with the -p instead of the -cp when you are working with a class path itself. Let's kind of have a look on our Java help and see what we're talking about. So if you see here on the Java command, we have a few options that you can pass on the command, and we have CP, that is class path, that what I said. So you'd have been passing the path for your dependencies on this flag, and when you are using models, you'll be using -p instead, and this is the one that you're going to be using because our project is using modelization. So let's have a look at what you really need to do in order to run our program, right? So we already saw that only this is not enough because you're not passing the path for our dependency, and let's see how it would be to pass our dependency. That's how we are doing it here. So you could have this straight in the command line, but I put on a file just because it'll be easier to explain, and it's quite a long one. So what do we have here? So the first thing, we are using a Java, and we are pointing to a specific version instead of using just the Java itself. You could be using only like this, but I just prefer to use this just to show you guys. So you have to enable the preview because you're using the latest version of Java, and you're using some functionality that it's only available in the preview mode. So then we pass this Java agent here just because this was required because the Tomcat it's using some classes that we don't have available here, and it will be inside this jar here. And then here where everything starts, right? We have -p, where you are pointing where are all our dependencies. First we are saying we are including our own jar itself. Then we start to pass the all, so you can see strings, a few many, you can see the loads, and then we also have our local models. So as you can see, you are working with models here, and you have feed, common, forex, and runner. So and we have to also provide those here. And we, as you can see, we are not using the jar, but instead we are pointing straight to the classes folder where you would contain the Java classes inside it, right? So this, I use this way just to illustrate that you don't need to always point to a jar, but you can also point to the folder itself, and you also have some options to use zip if you like. And using classes instead of jar itself, it makes things faster because we don't need to package everything, but instead we just need to run the build, right? So when you use this way and to the rest of the models, we don't need to be packaging everything. So, but instead you just need to compile and generate the dot class. And this way you skip the test and the package itself. So that will be faster. And yeah, so that's it. So we just need to pass the path for the dependence here. I will be talking about this later, but that's how we would be using for class path. So we don't really need this now. This I'm just using to pass another folder that is not class path, but something else that would contain some CSS, and you're going to be talking this later. And then you need to pass what is your class, main class that you'll be executing, right? And that should be enough. Let's see if I can run from here. And he is running. That's our application running. And we could, if you're not confident enough to run this way, you could run this as well, like bean run. It'll be the same. So there you go. Yeah, so that's what we need to run our application. So as you can see, this is not really practical because we need to be adding dependency kind of manually, and I would say that's not very used nowadays. So it's more, people use more the fat version that would be only, it would require only to run it itself. So let's see how we would run a fat version now. Fat version would contain everything, and we'll just need to do like this. Oh, actually I need to rerun my other model here. I think. Yeah, so success. Then I'll try to run again. And yeah, it's run just fine, because we have everything that is needed. Let's have a quick look at what you have inside this jar. We can run this guy, and you can see that inside our jar we have loads of things now, and you can see most that's related to Spring Boot, and then we have some more classes here and our libraries dependencies. So here are the list of our dependencies that we need to run Spring. And yeah, so basically which, as you can see, it's way easier to work with the fat jar, because we have everything there and you don't need to be worrying in adding the path for the dependencies and so on and so forth. So everything will be managed by Spring Maven plugin, but we have others as well. So this is just the one I like to work with, because it's easy to work. And yeah, so I think that's clear out the differences between fat jar and light jars, right? So one, you need to be passing the path for every dependence, and the other one, you can have everything inside the jar and just execute a simple Java jar run, and everything is going to be just fine.